The void between Mars and Jupiter was supposed to be quiet. That's what Captain Sarah Chen of the TNS Argos had always liked about the asteroid mining routes. Just the gentle hum of the engines and the occasional chatter from her small crew of 12. 17 years of deep space mining had taught her to appreciate the silence. Today, that silence was shattered by an alert she'd never heard before. "Captain, you need to see this." Maya's voice crackled through the ship's comm. The sensor operator's usually calm demeanor had an edge to it that made Sarah straighten in her chair. Multiple objects just appeared at the edge of our scanning range. Nothing like I've ever seen before. Sarah was already moving toward the bridge, her magnetic boots clicking against the metal floor. Define appeared, Maya. They just showed up. No approach vector. One moment nothing, next moment. Maya's voice trailed off as Sarah entered the bridge. The main display showed what looked like tears in space itself, radiant edges of reality giving way to something else. Through these ruptures came ships, if you could call them that. They moved like liquid mercury, their hulls flowing and shifting in ways that defied everything Sarah knew about spacecraft design. "Holy shit," breathed Jim, their chief engineer. "Those aren't human." Before anyone could respond, more ruptures appeared. The new arrivals were different. Angular, predatory shapes covered in what looked like crystalline growths. They moved with terrible purpose toward the first group of ships. The bridge crew watched in horror as the crystalline ships opened fire. Their weapons looked like streams of frozen lightning, tearing into the mercury-like vessels. The attacked ships tried to flee, their fluid forms stretching and warping as they attempted to escape. "Captain." Maya's voice was barely a whisper. "I'm picking up transmissions. They're begging for help. In dozens of languages. One of them is English." Sarah's mind raced. The Argos was a mining vessel, armed with nothing more than point defense lasers for deflecting asteroids. But they were watching a massacre unfold before their eyes. "Get me a channel to Earth Command. Priority 1. Sarah ordered, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. "And start plotting an intercept course to those refugee ships." "Captain," Jim protested, "we're not a warship. We're about to become one." Sarah cut him off. "Maya, how many life signs on those refugee ships?" "Thousands, Captain. Many of them." Maya swallowed hard. "Many of them register as children." Sarah nodded grimly. "Jim, those mining lasers of ours, how much power can you divert to them?" A slow smile spread across Jim's face as he caught her meaning. "They're designed to cut through asteroid rock. With full power, they could do some damage. Route everything except life support and engines to the lasers. Maya, get me that channel to Earth Command. And someone wake up Rodriguez. Tell him his gunnery practice is about to become real." The Argos's engines flared to life, pushing the bulky mining vessel toward the conflict. Sarah knew they were probably about to die, but humanity's first contact with alien life wasn't going to be standing by while children died. Earth Command's response was immediate and unexpected. "Captain Chen, hold position. Relief is incoming." Before Sarah could question this, new signals appeared on their sensors. From the direction of Mars, 3 ships dropped their stealth fields, Earth's first true warships. Their existence had been kept secret from the public. They were ugly compared to either alien fleet, blocks of armor and weapons with engines attached, looking more like mobile fortresses than ships. "This is Captain Victor Riza of the EDF Bastion." A new voice cut through their comm. "All civilian vessels clear the area. We'll handle this." Sarah watched in amazement as the Earth ships engaged the crystalline attackers. Their weapons were primitive compared to the alien energy weapons, railguns and missiles rather than frozen lightning, but they were devastating in their effectiveness. The crystalline ships' elegant defenses seemed designed for energy weapons, not the brute force of hypersonic tungsten rounds and nuclear-tipped missiles. "Captain," Maya reported, excitement creeping into her voice, "the refugee ships are broadcasting their thanks. They're They're calling us their saviors. Sarah watched as the crystalline ships retreated, clearly surprised by the fierce resistance. The Mercury-like refugee vessels began limping toward Mars' orbit, under the protection of Earth's secret fleet. Hours later, Sarah stood in her quarters, composing her report. How do you describe humanity's first contact with alien life? How do you put into words the moment when your species steps onto a galactic stage you didn't even know existed? In the end, she wrote what she felt. Today, humanity joined the galaxy. We didn't do it with grand speeches or peaceful exchanges of knowledge. We did it by choosing to stand up and protect the innocent, even at the risk of our own destruction. I don't know what the future holds for Earth now, but I know this. We passed our first test as a spacefaring species. When faced with the choice between safety and doing what's right, we chose right. Whatever comes next, I believe that choice will define us among the stars. As the Argos escorted the refugee ships toward Mars, Sarah couldn't help but smile. Humanity's first step into a larger universe hadn't been grand or dignified. It had been typically human, rushing in to help without thinking twice. Somehow, that felt exactly right. The United Earth Council chamber had never been this crowded. Representatives from every nation sat shoulder to shoulder, their usual political divisions forgotten in the face of what they were about to hear. At the center of the chamber stood something that would have been impossible just weeks ago: an alien. The being called itself Ambassador Zinra, and its crystalline form caught the light in ways that made it painful to look at directly. Its voice came not from any visible mouth, but from a translator device that hung in the air before it. "We are the Conclave of Light." The translator spoke in perfectly modulated tones. "We represent over 300 spacefaring species spread across what you would call the Orion Arm. And we have come to warn you." Admiral Helena Torres, newly appointed commander of Earth's revealed defense fleet, stood at her podium. "Warn us about the crystal ships that attacked the refugees." The harvesters, Zinra's form dimmed slightly, a gesture they would later learn indicated deep distress. Were, like us once, a spacefaring race. But they found something in deep space, something that changed them. Now they consume worlds, transform entire species into more of themselves. They are a wave of extinction moving through the galaxy. The chamber erupted in whispers. Admiral Torres raised her hand for silence. "How many worlds have fallen?" 2,347 inhabited worlds in the last solar cycle. Zinra's response brought absolute silence to the chamber. "Your world lies directly in their path. Why come to us?" Torres asked the question everyone was thinking. "We're barely a spacefaring civilization. Our most advanced ships must seem primitive to you. Because you did something no one has done in centuries." Zinra's form brightened. "You fought them. And you won." The holoprojector in the center of the chamber activated, showing the battle that had started it all. The Earth ships, crude but effective, their kinetic weapons tearing through the harvester vessels. "We have spent centuries developing energy weapons, shield systems, quantum computing networks," Zinra continued. "The harvesters adapted to all of it. But what did you call them? Railguns? They had no defense against such primitive weapons. Your ship's armor, thick plates of metal instead of energy fields, withstood their attacks better than our most advanced shields. Sometimes the old ways work best." Torres allowed herself a small smile. "But you're not just here to compliment our engineering." "No." Zinra's form shifted, displaying what looked like star charts. "We are here to propose an alliance. The Conclave has technology centuries ahead of yours. You have weapons and defenses the harvesters cannot counter. Together we might have a chance." Torres finished. "But there's more, isn't there?" Zinra's form dimmed again. "The refugees you saved. They were the last survivors of the Lumini species. The harvesters had consumed their entire civilization. Your act of courage saved them from extinction. Word has spread through the galaxy. Other races, ones who had given up hope, are looking to Earth now. You have become a symbol. Admiral Torres looked around the chamber, at the faces of Earth's leaders. She saw the weight settling on their shoulders, the weight of not just their own world's survival, but potentially the survival of countless species. We'll need to upgrade our infrastructure, she said finally. Adapt your technology to our ships while keeping what makes them effective. Train our crews to work alongside alien allies, and we'll need to do it fast. The harvesters will reach your solar system in approximately 1 Earth year, Zinra confirmed. Then we better get started. Torres straightened her uniform. Humanity's always been good at learning on the job, and we're very, very good at proving people wrong when they underestimate us. The next months were a blur of activity. Massive shipyards appeared in orbit, built with conclave technology but producing vessels of human design. The secrets of faster-than-light travel were shared, but integrated into ships that still relied on thick armor and kinetic weapons. Earth's military forces began training alongside alien allies, each learning from the other. Captain Sarah Chen, the mining captain who had witnessed first contact, found herself promoted to commander of a new type of vessel, a hybrid of human and conclave technology. Her old mining lasers had inspired a new weapon system, combining human brute force approaches with alien precision. It's ugly, she admitted, looking at her new command through the shipyard's viewport. The ship was a blocky human design with elegant conclave technology grafted onto it in ways that made artists weep. But it's tough, just like us. Admiral Torres stood beside her, watching the construction. The conclave analysts say we're crazy, you know. Mixing technologies like this, using their quantum computers to make our primitive weapons more accurate instead of replacing them entirely. They say it shouldn't work. Good thing nobody told us that before we tried it, Sarah grinned. How many ships will we have ready? Not enough. Torres' expression grew serious. Even with the conclave's help, we can only build so many. We'll be outnumbered at least 20 to 1. So business as usual for humanity. Sarah watched as another hybrid vessel took shape in the shipyard. Being outnumbered just means we have more targets to choose from. The weight of stars, of entire civilizations, looking to Earth for hope, should have been crushing. But humans had a peculiar way of dealing with impossible situations. They simply refused to accept that they were impossible. As the fleet grew and the clock ticked down to the harvester's arrival, that stubborn human spirit began to infect their alien allies. Perhaps, just perhaps, the weight of stars wasn't meant to crush them. Maybe it was meant to make them strong enough to hold up the sky itself. The first true test of humanity's hybrid fleet came sooner than expected. A harvester scout force penetrated the Proxima Centauri system, where humanity's first extrasolar colony was just taking root. The response would set the tone for everything that followed. Captain Sarah Chen's vessel, now named the TNS Persistence, led the response fleet. The hybrid ship's crew was a mix of humans and conclave specialists, learning to work together under real combat conditions. As they dropped out of FTL at the edge of the system, Sarah couldn't help but smile at the conclave tactical officer's confusion. Captain, our sensors indicate the harvester force outnumbers us 3 to 1. KVEX's crystalline form flickered with concern. Standard conclave doctrine would recommend retreat and regrouping. Good thing we're not following standard doctrine, Sarah replied, watching the tactical display. Lieutenant Rodriguez, are you seeing what I'm seeing? The weapons officer, promoted from his mining ship gunnery position, grinned. Yes, Mom. They're in a standard attack formation, just like the conclave tactical manuals predicted. And what do we know about standard tactics, Lieutenant? They're standard for a reason, Mom. Rodriguez's fingers flew over his console, making minute adjustments to the targeting systems. They work against standard responses. The harvester ships moved with mechanical precision, spreading out to envelop the smaller human-led fleet. Their formation was perfect, exactly as the tactical simulations had shown. That was their first mistake. All ships, execute Maneuver Thunder, Sarah commanded. The hybrid fleet responded instantly, but not in any way the harvesters could have predicted. Instead of maintaining formation, The ships scattered in seemingly random directions, their movements looking more like panic than strategy. The Harvester fleet adjusted, moving to pick off what they perceived as fleeing vessels. That was their second mistake. Now, Sarah ordered. The scattered fleet suddenly reversed course, each ship firing their hybrid drives in ways that would have torn apart vessels built with either pure human or pure conclave technology. The random flight paths resolved into an interwoven pattern that caught the Harvester fleet in a three-dimensional crossfire. All ships, weapons free. Sarah's voice was calm. Give them something new to think about. The hybrid fleet's weapons opened up. Railguns accelerated their projectiles using conclave quantum tunneling, achieving velocities that bent space itself. Modified mining lasers, powered by conclave energy systems, cut through Harvester shields like they weren't there. But the real surprise came from the missiles. Nuclear launch detected. KVEX's alarm was evident. Captain, the radiation. Just watch. Sarah smiled as the nuclear-tipped missiles detonated. Instead of explosive force, they released precisely targeted electromagnetic pulses, amplified by conclave technology to frequencies that the Harvester's biological ships found particularly painful. The enemy vessels writhed, their crystalline structures distorting as their internal systems were disrupted. All ships, close to knife-fighting range. Sarah ordered. Let's show them why you don't corner something that evolved as a pursuit predator. The hybrid fleet dove into the scattered Harvester formation. At close range, the advantages of energy weapons disappeared. It became a brawl, and humanity had been perfecting the art of close combat for millennia. KVEX watched in amazement as the human crews executed maneuvers that no conclave tactical computer would have ever suggested. They used their ship's mass as weapons, clipped enemy vessels with grazing shots that disrupted their organic hulls, and deliberately flew through their own weapons' debris fields to mask their movements. This is impossible, the conclave officer muttered. The chaos, the unpredictability. That's the point. Rodriguez grinned as he fired another spread of modified missiles. Humans are really good at impossible. The battle lasted less than an hour. When it was over, the Harvester scout force was reduced to drifting debris. The hybrid fleet had suffered damage, but not a single ship was lost. As damage reports came in, Sarah opened a channel to the fleet. All ships, well done. Today we proved something important. The Harvesters think they've seen everything the galaxy can throw at them. They've adapted to energy weapons, quantum shields, and AI tactical systems, but they've never faced humanity before. They've never faced a species that looks at their superior technology and says, "That's nice, but have you tried hitting them with a really big rock?" Laughter echoed through the command channel, humans and aliens alike sharing in the moment of victory. But Sarah wasn't finished. Send the battle data to Earth Command and the Conclave. Let them see that this works. Our primitive approaches combined with their advanced technology. We're not just fighting the Harvesters, we're changing how the galaxy thinks about warfare. KVEX's crystalline form had shifted to a color humans would learn indicated deep thought. Captain, in all the centuries of conflict with the Harvesters, I have never seen a battle quite like this. Get used to it, Sarah replied, watching her crew secure their stations with practiced efficiency. Humanity's just getting started, and we got a lot more impossible tricks to show the galaxy. The battle data spread quickly through both human and conclave networks. The victory at Proxima Centauri became a template for a new kind of warfare, one that combined the best of both civilizations. But more importantly, it gave something to both humanity and their allies that had been in short supply: hope. Admiral Helena Torres stood in the combined fleet's tactical center, surrounded by holograms showing the movement of both friendly forces and Harvester advances. The news wasn't good. Despite the victory at Proxima Centauri and several successful defensive actions since then, the Harvesters were adapting. They always did. They're learning. She addressed the assembled commanders, both human and alien. Each engagement, they're less susceptible to our tactics. Their biological ships are evolving countermeasures. Captain Sarah Chen, recently promoted to fleet commander after her success at Proxima Centauri, stepped forward. Then we need to evolve faster. The holographic display shifted, showing the latest battle data. The Harvesters had begun developing organic armor that could resist railgun impacts, and their ships now generated interference fields that disrupted the hybrid fleet's targeting systems. We anticipated this, Sarah continued. It's why we didn't rely on any single advantage. Humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our tactics. It's our ability to adapt. She gestured, and the display changed to show new ship designs. We've been working with Conclave engineers on these. We're calling them Chameleon-class vessels. The assembled commanders leaned forward, studying the strange new ships. They looked almost incomplete, their hulls covered in reconfigurable panels and modular weapon mounts. The Harvesters adapt to defeat whatever hurts them, Sarah explained. So we're building ships that can change how they fight in the middle of battle. Every engagement will be like fighting us for the first time. A Conclave commander, their crystalline form glowing with skepticism, spoke up. The computational requirements for such adaptability would be enormous. No tactical AI could process changes fast enough in combat conditions. That's why we won't be using AI, Sarah smiled. We'll be using humans, specifically human video gamers. The chamber erupted in confused murmurs. Admiral Torres raised her hand for silence, nodding for Sarah to continue. Humanity has spent centuries developing games that simulate combat. We have millions of people who can process complex tactical situations and adapt strategies on the fly. They don't follow predetermined patterns. They improvise. They get creative. They do the unexpected. The display showed simulated battles where human operators, using interfaces adapted from combat games, controlled the reconfigurable ships with startling effectiveness. Our best gamers can make tactical decisions faster than any AI we've tested, Sarah continued. They don't look for perfect solutions. They look for good enough solutions they can implement right now. And most importantly, they're unpredictable in ways that even they can't anticipate. Admiral Torres stepped forward. We've already begun recruiting from professional gaming leagues. The Chameleon-class ships will be crewed by traditional military personnel, but their tactical systems will be controlled by teams of gamers operating from secure facilities on Earth and Mars. The Conclave commanders were silent, processing this unprecedented approach. Finally, one spoke up. You intend to fight an interstellar war, using game players, along with trained military personnel. Yes, Torres confirmed. Humanity's greatest strength has always been thinking outside normal parameters. The Harvesters adapt to patterns, so we're going to stop giving them patterns to adapt to. The next few weeks saw the first Chameleon-class ships join the fleet. Their crews had to adjust to taking tactical direction from teams of gamers, but the results were undeniable. In simulated engagements, the new ships consistently outperformed both traditional human and Conclave vessels. Sarah walked through one of the gaming centers on Mars, watching as teams of young people, many barely out of their teens, ran combat simulations. Their fingers flew over customized controls as they called out maneuvers that would have given any traditional tactical officer a headache. They're not just good, her new tactical officer, a former professional gamer named Jin Park, explained. They're innovative. Yesterday, one team used their ship's reconfigurable panels to reflect another ship's energy weapons back at the enemy. It wasn't in any tactical manual because nobody had ever thought to try it. The Harvesters won't know what hit them. Sarah watched as a simulation team executed a maneuver that looked more like a dance move than a combat tactic, and somehow it worked. But even as the new ships were integrated into the fleet, long-range sensors brought troubling news. The main Harvester fleet, larger than any force they'd encountered so far, was accelerating toward Earth. They would arrive within weeks. They've realized we're a threat, Admiral Torres said during an emergency command meeting. They're coming to eliminate us before we can spread our innovations to the rest of the galaxy. Sarah studied the sensor data. The incoming fleet was massive. Thousands of ships, including variants they'd never seen before. Then we'll just have to show them why that was a mistake. Humanity doesn't respond well to extinction-level threats. As the combined fleet prepared for what would likely be their greatest battle, Sarah couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. Humanity had taken its first steps into the galaxy less than a year ago, and already they had revolutionized interstellar warfare, formed alliances with ancient civilizations, and become a symbol of hope for countless species. The Harvesters thought they were coming to eliminate a threat. Instead, they were about to learn why you should never corner a species that had spent its entire history overcoming impossible odds. The combined fleet waited in the shadow of Jupiter, a force unlike any the galaxy had seen before. Human ships bristling with kinetic weapons flew alongside elegant conclave vessels. The new Chameleon-class ships shifted restlessly, their reconfigurable hulls catching the gas giant's light in strange ways. And behind them all, hidden in the radiation belts of Jupiter, waited humanity's surprise. Admiral Torres stood on the bridge of her flagship, the TNS Defiance, watching the tactical display as the massive Harvester fleet approached. Their numbers were staggering. Nearly 10,000 ships, their biological hulls having evolved into forms specifically designed to counter every tactic the Alliance had used so far. All ships, battle stations, her voice carried across the combined fleet's communications. You all know what's at stake. Not just Earth, not just the Conclave, but the future of every species that looks to the stars and dreams. Sarah Chen's voice came through the command channel. Her Chameleon-class ship, the TNS Trickster, led the vanguard. Gamer teams report ready, Admiral. They're eager to show the Harvesters some new tricks. The Harvesters expect us to defend Earth directly, Torres continued. They expect us to form a defensive line, to fight conventionally. Let's show them why that was a mistake. Execute Operation Thunderstrike. The combined fleet burst into action. Instead of forming up to meet the Harvester Armada head-on, they split into dozens of smaller groups, each moving in seemingly random patterns. To the Harvesters' tactical computers, it must have looked like chaos. That was exactly the point. The Harvester fleet adjusted their formation, spreading out to engage the scattered Alliance forces. Their biological ships rippled with new defensive adaptations, energy-absorbing scales, kinetic impact dampeners, electronic warfare spines. They had evolved counters to every weapon and tactic they'd encountered. But they hadn't evolved counters to what they hadn't seen yet. All ships, Phase 1, Torres commanded. The scattered fleet groups suddenly accelerated, their movements resolving into intricate patterns. The Chameleon-class ships led each group, their reconfigurable hulls shifting in real time as gamer teams adapted to the Harvesters' responses. The battle erupted across the space near Jupiter. Alliance ships darted through the Harvester formation, their attacks seemingly random but actually herding the biological ships into precise positions. The Harvesters responded with overwhelming force, their superior numbers allowing them to press their attack despite the confusion. They're taking the bait, Sarah reported as her ship danced through enemy fire. Phase 2. Phase 2, Torres confirmed. Show them what humanity learned from 4 billion years of evolution. The Alliance fleet suddenly changed tactics. The Chameleon-class ships reconfigured into forms that made no tactical sense until they began broadcasting on precise frequencies that mimicked biological distress signals. The Harvester ships, their organic nature working against them, found their biological systems responding instinctively to these false signals. Phase 3, Torres ordered. Jin, tell your teams it's time to go viral. The gaming teams, who had spent weeks studying biological response patterns, executed maneuvers that exploited the Harvester's organic nature. Ships broadcast conflicting signals that caused the biological vessels to fight their own control systems. Others mimicked mating calls, territorial threats, and other biological imperatives that the Harvesters couldn't fully suppress. But the true surprise waited in Jupiter's radiation belts. As the harvester fleet was drawn into position, Torres gave the final command. Release the swarm. Thousands of small objects emerged from hiding. They looked primitive, little more than metal shells with engines attached. The harvesters initially ignored them, their tactical systems dismissing them as debris or simple missiles. That was their final mistake. These were humanity's answer to biological warfare, mechanical von Neumann machines, designed to replicate using the very materials the harvester ships were made of. They weren't alive, couldn't be adapted against, and had been programmed with one purpose: turn the harvester's biological nature against them. The tiny machines attached themselves to harvester ships and began reproducing, converting the organic hulls into more of themselves. The harvesters' adaptive abilities, which allowed them to evolve countermeasures to conventional weapons, only accelerated their downfall. Every adaptation they made was analyzed and incorporated into the next generation of mechanical replicators. All ships, fall back to safe distance, Torres ordered. Let evolution take its course. The Alliance fleet withdrew, watching as the harvester armada began to dissolve from within. Ships turned against each other, their crews losing control as their vessels were consumed and converted. Some tried to flee, but the mechanical swarm followed, implacable and untiring. Hours later, where the greatest harvester fleet ever assembled had been, there was only debris and a cloud of dormant mechanical replicators, their task complete. Send the shutdown signal, Torres commanded. The mechanical swarm powered down, their simple programs having served their purpose. They would be collected later, studied to ensure they could never pose a threat like the one they had just eliminated. The victory was total, but Torres felt no jubilation. Begin search and rescue operations. If any harvester crews survived, we'll offer them a chance to remember who they were before whatever changed them. As the Alliance fleet began the cleanup operation, Sarah Chen's voice came through the command channel. Admiral, we're receiving transmissions from across the galaxy. The other harvester forces, they're retreating, breaking apart. Without the main fleet's coordination, they're reverting to their original nature, a conclave commander finished. The forced evolution that made them the harvesters is breaking down. There may be hope for them yet. Torres looked at the tactical display, now showing the status of inhabited worlds across the galaxy. For the first time in centuries, the red dots indicating harvester activity were disappearing. Send word to Earth and to all our allies, she ordered. Tell them that humanity sends its regards, and that we're not done yet. The galaxy's a dangerous place, but that's nothing new to us. We evolved on a death world, survived everything it could throw at us, and came out stronger. Now we'll help make the galaxy stronger too. As the fleet began its journey home, Torres couldn't help but smile. Humanity's first year among the stars had been typically human, messy, violent, creative, and ultimately triumphant. They had faced extinction, and instead became saviors, turned enemies into allies, and proved that sometimes the best solutions were the ones no advanced civilization would think to try. The stars felt a little brighter now, a little more like home. And somewhere out there, other species looked up at those same stars and whispered a word that meant both hope and mourning. Humans.